With ImpacTalks, we celebrate the power of storytelling.
Our next speaker is Jan Moller. He is the executive director of the Louisiana Budget Project, where he leads a committed team of analysts, advocates, and communicators that monitors and reports on policies that affect low-income families in the Bayou State. Prior to joining the Budget Project in 2011, Jan was an award-winning journalist who spent 20 years reporting on politics and public policy everywhere from Washington, D.C. to Nevada to Louisiana. In his current role, Jan has helped the Budget Project become a leading voice on state fiscal policies, healthcare, and education. From him, we'll hear a classic underdog tale of triumph set in the heart of Louisiana. Please join me in welcoming Jan.
Well, you probably already know that Louisiana is a poor and politically conservative state. What you may not know is that according to one survey, we are also America's happiest state. Well, this odd combination of conservatism and contentment can make it extremely difficult to move progressive policies at the state capitol. But earlier this year, in the midst of a massive budget deficit, an opportunity came along to expand our modest earned income tax credit. It happened in the final hours with 1 hour to spare at the end of a special session with 1 vote to spare. But the seeds of this story began much earlier in the cultivation of strong and committed champions. And as with so many stories in Louisiana, it begins in the topsy-turvy days of Hurricane Katrina. We all remember the storm that hit Louisiana in 2005 and the damage it did. What you may not remember is the massive economic boom that came afterwards. Tens of billions of dollars came into the state to help us rebuild. $140 a barrel oil in the Gulf of Mexico. And up in North Louisiana, the fracking industry was taking off. And the result was more revenue in state government than anybody had seen before or since. And so we did some really good things. Teachers were paid at the southern regional average for the first time ever. We filled the rainy day fund. Our rainy day fund was filled to capacity. And our public colleges and universities were funded at the level of their regional peers for the first time in a generation. But there was still $1 billion left over. And the siren song of tax cuts was too much for the Louisiana legislature to resist, along with 2 consecutive governors. So the good news is, in 2007, we got a modest earned income tax credit signed into law, the first in the Deep South. The bad news is we got 2 massive personal income tax cuts that mostly benefited the upper middle class and the wealthy. And then we got, or by that time, we had Bobby Jindal as our governor. And the Great Recession took hold. And all those billion-dollar surpluses became billion-dollar shortfalls. And all the good things we did started to unravel. Teacher pay was frozen. The rainy day fund was raided multiple times along with other funds. And our public colleges and universities were cut farther and faster than anywhere else in the entire country. And by 2016, when we had a new governor, we also had another oil recession, and he inherited a $2 billion shortfall. And he didn't have many choices about how to raise money quickly, so he did the only thing he could get through the legislature. He got a sales tax passed, 1 penny increase in the state sales tax, and we called it the clean penny. But our governor's an optimist, and he thought maybe he could get some comprehensive tax reform through the legislature the next year. So we put an expiration date on this of July 1st, 2018. This date became known as the fiscal cliff, when the sales tax was due to expire. Well, 2007, they tried tax reform, and the legislature was in no mood for that. So as this year began, we knew a couple of things. We knew a sales tax was expiring on July 1st, and that something had to be done, because the alternative was really too awful to contemplate, and everybody knew it. Public hospitals were going to have to close, students would lose their scholarship. There was even talk about eliminating the SNAP program. So we knew the fiscal cliff was going to get addressed in some way. We knew it almost certainly was going to involve renewing the sales tax. We knew this had to happen in a bipartisan fashion, because it takes 2/3 majorities in the legislature to raise or renew a tax. And we knew that absolutely everybody hated the sales tax. You had conservatives, Republicans in the legislature, who just hate all taxes and don't want to raise revenue and don't believe you should fund government. But you also had progressives, Democrats, who hated this tax in particular, because they understood what we understand about sales taxes, that they are regressive, that they hurt low-income families more than wealthy ones. And that's when an idea was born. Why don't we see if we can get the EITC expanded as part of whatever tax deal happens at the end of the year? And we knew it was a long shot, but we had a few things going for us. Number one, we had committed legislative champions. This was not our first rodeo on the EITC, and we had been working for years to cultivate people at the legislature who believed in the issue just as much as we did, and who understood all the talking points and who knew it. Number two, we had great coalition partners who we'd been working with for years on this issue, on bills that had died. Children's advocates, Louisiana Partnership for Children and Families. We had faith-based groups like the Louisiana Conference of Catholic Bishops, the AARP, United Way, grassroots groups, state voices tables. So we had partners. And we're an SPP group, so we had data. Data like you see up here. Data that showed exactly by district who was going to benefit and how much. And in the end, that's what kind of made the difference. So as the session started, and as the special session kicked in, a couple of interesting things started to happen. The sales tax bill still didn't have the votes to pass, but the EITC bill started to move. Republicans and Democrats in the Senate were making floor speeches in favor of this. They understood that helping the working poor just a little bit might make that difficult sales tax vote go down just a little bit easier. It passed the Senate on a 30-5 vote, but we still had a major problem in the House, which is more conservative, and particularly in the Ways and Means Committee, which was notoriously hard line against anything that smelled of progressivism. And so our bill went into the Ways and Means Committee, and it got killed, and it got killed a second time. But then something very interesting started to happen, and unbeknownst to me, our legislative champions, led by the Louisiana Legislative Black Caucus, had decided that this bill and that no tax bill was getting done without the EITC. They would not give in. And the way I found out about this was my phone started blowing up. And it was June 4th, and the special session had to end by midnight, and that afternoon, legislators were texting me, and they wanted to know about data. Tell me again how many people in my district are going to benefit. And now tell me how many people in my colleague's district who I'm trying to lobby on this. Well, when my phone started blowing up, I knew we had a chance. So they took a vote. It was a little after 9 o'clock. It failed by one vote. I was devastated. But they wouldn't give up. They huddled. They put an amendment on the bill. And at 7 minutes after 11 o'clock on June 4th, the EITC bill passed by one vote. Louisiana. Now, what does all this mean? Well, it's not going to fix all of Louisiana's problems. We don't pretend that it will. We're still going to be a poor state in 2019. We're still going to be conservative. It's going to be hard to get things done at the state capitol. We're still going to be happy. We're going to celebrate Mardi Gras while the rest of you go to work on a Tuesday. But we're also going to know that sometimes good champions, strong coalitions, and data can all come together and move the ball forward a little bit for working families in our state who need it the most. And if it can happen in Louisiana, it can happen anywhere. Thank you.